Welcome to Part B of our complete I-485 tutorial. In this video, we'll continue walking through the remaining sections of the form I-485, including your marital history, information about your children, background questions, and the final verification parts. Let's dive right in and make sure your application is filled out correctly and confidently. Now we move into Part 6 of the I-485, information about your marital history. This section tells USCIS about your current and past marriages. It's very important to provide complete and accurate information here because gaps or errors often lead to requests for evidence or delays in processing. Let's go question by question so you know exactly how to fill it out. The first question in Part 6 asks for your current marital status. You'll choose one of the options such as married, single, divorced, widowed, annulled, or legally separated. Make sure this reflects your actual legal status on the day you're filling out the form. Being precise here matters because later questions build on this answer. For example, if you recently got married or divorced, your answer should be updated to reflect that change. Next, if you selected married as your status, the form will ask, is your current spouse a member of the U.S. Armed Forces or the U.S. Coast Guard? Just answer based on your situation. This doesn't affect your green card eligibility directly, but USCIS still collects this information as part of the background data. Provide an honest answer based on your spouse's status, whether they are currently serving or not. Then you must state how many times you have been married, including your current marriage. This means you count all past marriages, even if they ended in divorce, annulment, or death. For example, if you were married once before and are currently married again, you would enter 2 here. USCIS wants a full history of all your marriages, not just the most recent one. After indicating how many times you've been married, the next fields ask for details about your current spouse. If you are currently married, full legal name. Enter your spouse's family name, last name, given name, first name, and middle name if applicable. A number. If your spouse ever had an A number, for example, if they were once a non-citizen with immigration records, you would enter it here. If your spouse is a U.S. citizen, they likely do not have one, so you can leave this blank. Date of birth. Provide your spouse's date of birth using the MM/DD/YYYY format. Country of birth. Enter the place where your spouse was born, city or town, and country. Date and place of marriage. USCIS wants to know when and where you were married. Include city, town, state, province if applicable, and country. Then the form asks, is your current spouse applying with you now? Answer yes only if your spouse is also filing their own Form I-485 as a derivative applicant in this same filing. If your spouse is not applying with you, for example, if they're a U.S. citizen or are pursuing a different immigration route, answer no. This helps USCIS link or separate cases correctly. Now that we've completed Part 6, your marital history, we move on to Part 7, information about your children. Part 7 opens with the most important question. Indicate the total number of all living children anywhere in the world, including adult sons and daughters, that you have. This means you must count every living child you have, biological children, legally adopted children, and stepchildren who are legally your child, whether they are under age 18 over age 18, living in the United States or living in another country. Enter the total number here. For example, if you have 2 daughters and 1 son, you would enter 3. If one of your children lives overseas, you still count them. Once you enter the total number of children, the form will ask you to enter specific details for each child. For every child, you'll provide the following. Full legal name. Enter the child's family. Name, given name, and middle name if they have one, exactly as it appears on their birth certificate, passport, or legal ID. Date of birth. Enter their date of birth in MM/DD/YYYY format. Accuracy matters. Use official records to avoid errors. Relationship. Indicate whether this child is your biological child, adopted child, or stepchild. These fields help USCIS confirm your family relationships and connect your file with any derivative applications if applicable. The form will then ask for each child whether that child is applying with you as a derivative on this I-485 application. If your child is filing their own Form I-485 as a derivative applicant at the same time as you, answer yes for that child and be sure they have their own. A 485 form completed and attached. If your child is not applying with you, for example, because they are over 21 and pursuing their own separate immigration path, or they are a U.S. citizen, or they simply aren't immigrating right now. Answer no for that child. Answer this for each child individually so USCIS can correctly link or separate derivative cases. If the number of children you entered is greater than the space provided on this main page of the form, you will continue listing them on the additional information page at the end of the I-485 form. On that additional information page, be sure to reference the exact page, part, and item number from the main form so that USCIS clearly knows which child information corresponds to which question. For example, page 12, part 7, item 1, child 3 details. Now we move into part 8, biographic information. This section asks questions about your physical characteristics and background identity details. These details help USCIS confirm your identity and match your records across government databases. Let's walk through each question carefully. The first question in Part 8 asks for your ethnicity. You'll see options such as Hispanic or Latino or not Hispanic or Latino. Choose the option that best describes your ethnicity. Next, USCIS asks for your race. You may select one or more of the listed options, then enter your height. You will provide this in feet and inches. Next, enter your weight in pounds. Again, this is for biographical identification and should be as accurate as possible. Question 5, you'll select your eye color from the list provided. Question 6, indicate your hair color. Select the one that best describes your natural or current hair color. Now we're entering Part 9 of the I-485, General Eligibility and Inadmissibility Grounds. The first question asks, have you ever been a member of, involved in, or in any way associated with any organization, association, fund, foundation, party, club, society, or similar group in the United States or anywhere in the world? This includes any group of people you have ever been associated with, from professional organizations and social clubs to religious or political groups. If you have been involved, you must answer yes and provide details including the name of the group, location, your role, and dates of involvement. If you have never been associated with any group, answer no. USCIS is asking this to screen for affiliations that might relate to security or other inadmissibility concerns. If you answer yes, the form will ask you to list the name of the organization, the location, city, country, the nature or purpose of the group, and the dates of membership or involvement. It's important to be truthful and thorough. USCIS wants information so they can evaluate whether any affiliation might relate to inadmissibility grounds, such as involvement with extremist or prohibited groups. After the membership question, Part 9 continues with a series of questions about other eligibility and inadmissibility grounds. These typically include whether you have ever been arrested, cited, charged, indicted, convicted, or imprisoned for any offense, worked in the United States without authorization, violated U.S. immigration laws, made misrepresentations or false claims to U.S. citizenship, been involved in human rights violations or other serious security issues. If you answer yes to any of these, you must provide additional information and documentation. The form often has space for explanation, or you can attach a separate sheet clearly labeled with the item number. Applicants often wonder what counts as an organization here. It's not limited to political parties or controversial groups. USCIS instruction and legal practice notes say this can include religious organizations, professional associations, social clubs, community groups, and other associations. It's usually safer to disclose affiliations and let USCIS determine relevance than to risk omission. One of the most commonly misunderstood questions is the public charge ground of inadmissibility. USCIS wants to know whether the public charge ground of inadmissibility under INA Section 212.04 applies to you. This is not asking whether you might receive public benefits in the future. Instead, it asks whether the rule itself applies to the category you are filing under for adjustment of status. Many applicants incorrectly think this is a prediction test about their future support, but it's really a legal ground that USCIS must check. Most family-based applicants are subject to this ground unless they are specifically exempt under the statute. After the membership and public charge questions, Part 9 goes through a series of specific eligibility and inadmissibility questions. These questions are designed to screen for legal bars under U.S. immigration law. If any of these apply to you, you must answer yes and provide full details, including dates, locations, and explanations. If you answer yes to any question in this section, do not panic. It does not necessarily mean denial, but it does mean USCIS wants details. For a yes answer, prepare a detailed explanation of what happened. Relevant supporting documents, for example, certified court records for arrests or convictions. Any explanations showing rehabilitation or context. Use the additional information page to clearly label each answer with the part, item, and question number, so USCIS knows exactly what you're explaining. Part 9 is crucial for USCIS's background and admissibility assessment, so taking time here reduces delays in RFEs. The next and final part of the main form is Part 10, Applicant's Contact Information, Certification, and Signature. This section is where you confirm everything on your form I-485 is true and accurate. Provide your current contact info, and then sign the form. Signing is essential. USCIS will not accept your form without it. In the first lines of Part 10, USCIS asks you for your current contact details. This includes your daytime telephone number, a number USCIS can reach you if needed, mobile telephone number, if you have one, email address, optional but recommended because USCIS may communicate important updates by email. Enter your information carefully. If USCIS cannot reach you, it could delay your case or cause you to miss important notices. Below your contact information is the certification and statement, sometimes called the applicant's declaration. By signing this section, you certify under penalty of perjury that all information provided in this I-485 application is true, correct, and complete to the best of your knowledge. All supporting copies of documents you submitted are true and exact copies of the original documents, unless USCIS has already requested originals. This is your legal promise to USCIS. Providing false information or omitting material facts can result in denial of your application, possible removal proceedings, or serious legal consequences. Once you've reviewed everything and are confident it's accurate, you must sign and date the form. Use black ink and sign exactly the same way you sign your legal documents. Write the date you're signing the application. Do not sign the form before you complete all prior parts. If your I-485 is unsigned, USCIS may reject it outright. Next is Part 11, Interpreter's Contact Information, Certification, and Signature. You only need to complete this part if someone assisted you as an interpreter. That is, if someone read the form to you or helped you understand the questions and instructions because you are not comfortable with the English language. If you did the form yourself in English and did not use an interpreter, you can skip this section and leave it blank. Below the contact information, the interpreter must certify that. They read every question and instruction on this I-485 form to the applicant in a language the applicant understands. The interpreter also read back the applicant's answers so the applicant could confirm their accuracy. This certification assures USCIS that your responses were correctly understood and that nothing was misinterpreted. Even though speaking English isn't required to apply for a green card, lying about using an interpreter or misrepresenting interpretation can lead to serious issues. After certifying this role, the interpreter must sign and date this part of the form. Signature. Handwritten signature of the interpreter. Date. The date the interpreter completed their certification. Next, we move to Part 12, Contact Information, Certification, and Signature of the person preparing this application, if other than the applicant. You only complete this part if someone else prepared your I-485 for you, even if that person is not an attorney, such as a family member, friend, or immigration preparer. Below the contact details, the preparer must certify that they assisted with completing the I-485 and that they have reviewed the application for accuracy. They are essentially saying they have prepared the form based on information the applicant gave them. They believe all the information to be true and correct to the best of their knowledge. This certification helps USCIS know who provided assistance and confirms the preparer stands behind the completion of the form. At the bottom of Part 12, the preparer must sign and date the form. This signature is important. It cannot be typed or a stamp. It must be a handwritten signature in ink. By signing, the preparer is confirming that they assisted as described and that they understand the responsibilities of preparing an immigration form. A valid signature helps USCIS trust the integrity of the assistance provided. If the preparer is an attorney or accredited representative, they may also need to submit a Form G-28, Notice of Entry of Appearance as attorney or accredited representative, with the I-485 packet. This tells USCIS that the attorney is officially representing the applicant. Whether the preparer is a lawyer or not, they must sign Part 12 if they helped prepare the form. We come to Part 13, Signature at interview. This part is unique because you do not fill it out now when you prepare your application. Instead, this section is completed and signed only when you appear for your green card interview with a USCIS officer. When you go to your scheduled USCIS interview, the officer will review your entire case with you. They'll verify your identity and may ask you to confirm some of your answers. Once everything checks out, they will instruct you to sign in Part 13. This is your official interview signature and serves as a final attestation that you stand by the information in your application. You and the officer may both sign and date this section together. Now that we've covered all the main numbered parts of Form I-485, we come to Part 14, Additional Information. This section is your catch-all space for anything that didn't fit earlier on the form and needs extra explanation. Here are common scenarios where applicants use Part 14. If you have more addresses, employers, schools, or travel history, then space allowed earlier. If you need to explain a yes answer, for example, a previous arrest or visa overstay, with details USCIS needs to understand. If you have multiple variations of your legal name that didn't fit earlier fields. No matter what you're adding, the key is to tie it clearly back to where it belongs on the main form. Just repeat the page, part, and question number at the start of each entry in Part 14. And that completes our step-by-step walkthrough of USCIS Form I-485 from Parts 1 through 14. You now know how to correctly fill out every section of the form, how to answer tricky questions, and how to sign and submit your application with confidence. Remember, accuracy matters. Take your time, check your supporting documents, and make sure everything is consistent before you file. A well-prepared application helps avoid delays, RFEs, and unnecessary stress. Thank you for watching. If this guide helped you, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you don't miss upcoming videos on how to assemble your packet, respond to RFEs, prepare for your interview, and more. Good luck with your green card journey. You're one step closer to your American dream.